Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Clangin Bangin with Mikey, episode 126. And today we're gonna talk about one of my partners. He said something to me the other week or beginning of last week. He's like, yeah, man, people should, we should bring back being disrespectful. I looked at my bro and I was like, what? Yeah. I was like, and I was like, dog, explain that. What you mean? And he's like, well, it's crazy to me because me and him are around the same age, right? We're both in our early to mid 30s. And he said, bruh, he's like, don't you find it kind of weird that everybody's offended? But when you ask them what they're offended by, they don't even, they can't even explain to you why they're offended. They're just offended. And it's true. Everybody's offended about something, but when you ask them to give you a reason why they're offended, they don't have one. They just say, well, I'm offended. And it's always been weird to me, It's like it's okay, like you're offended, but you don't know why you're offended, but you're still mad. So you don't even know why you're mad, but you're mad. Make that shit make sense. It's like anything with music, right? Music is a problem with music is that it's so subjective that you could be talking about one particular individual in a song or whatever it is, and somebody can hear that and be like, "Well, I'm offended because you said this or that about that, about that individual." And majority of the time, when we're talking about individuals in a track, it's like we're not even talking about them. We're talking about the situations that involve them, and that's a difficult part, man, because it's like, especially when it's a guy talking about a girl or whatever it is, or vice versa. Cause I just heard this track of I can't remember her name, but she was talking about how basically she's a female rap artist and her shit's pretty good. The track I heard I was listening to the other day, she was talking about like how I want my man to be not obsessed with the internet, but have intellect and you know and be stingy with the D but put in that E for me. You know what I mean? And it's like, so she's basically talking about the same shit, you know, as a guy would, and it's true because I'm glad a female artist finally said that because it's like we all want the same shit. We all want to wake up in the morning next to you or whatever it is. It's like and have meaningful conversations. The older I get, the more and more I realize, man, like all them hookups and all them casual shit. Yeah, it's cool, it's whatever, but you know, it's it gets old after a while, right? And I think it's important to realize that behavior has a big impact on people. I was talking to another one of my homegirls last night. We had a long conversation, and uh, she's married and everything too. And she was telling me like, oh yeah, well, it's crazy to me how people don't realize that men can only teach boys certain things and women can only teach women certain things, right? And it's like, yeah, it's true. It's like men turn boys into men just by teaching them how to be men. The problem is that it's like a lot of older guys are fucked up. They don't have the appropriate emotional tools to navigate the world. Whereas women, they teach men how to be compassionate, emotionally available for the most part, and they teach us how to tap into our emotional side. And it's crazy to me how yeah. Y'all remember that one sentence that was always told to us when little boys started crying? The first thing they tell us is like, boys don't cry, and that fucks us up because that tells us that we're not allowed to show our emotions. We're not allowed to show a different side of behavior. We're not allowed to show that we're hurt. We're not allowed to show that, we have feelings. A lot of us walk around, in our 20s and 30s, not knowing how to deal with this shit emotionally. Not knowing how to deal with certain situations because we were never taught how to deal with them, right? And yeah, you know, and it takes a while for you to recognize what you learned or what you witnessed was bullshit. Everybody's situation is different. Everybody's home situation. It is what it is, right? And I think the more you realize how fucked up some of your home situations were, and you don't really realize that until you're older, until you move away, till you get your own place or whatever it is, right? You don't realize how fucked up a lot of this shit was. Uh, and I think the more and more people realize that, the more and more people, you know, come to grips that a lot of the shit that they witness, especially I mean I don't know what it's like, in other cultures and whatnot too. I can only speak for myself, but being raised in a black household, man, it's it's different because it's like, especially if you're biracial too. You know what I mean? So it's like, not that I had a hard time fitting in because I didn't. I mean, it's like the disability took care of that. The disability made me stand out no matter what, right? And I think that it's imperative to find out who you are, and and just rock with that, and never be afraid to show emotion. It's like, yeah, if you feel in a certain way, express that. If you feel in a certain way, like, express that in a positive way. That's probably one of the reasons why I fell in love with weight training, man. I have a problem opening up to people, and being vulnerable with individuals. It takes me a long time for me to trust you and for me to actually let you in. And I'm not talking just physically in between my sheets, whatever, because that's nothing. And I mean that in the most humblest way. That's nothing. What I mean by opening up, I mean emotionally being available, being vulnerable. Because as men, and again, I can only speak for myself. A lot of women will use what we said in private to them about us being vulnerable, us being, emotional, unavailable, or trying to be available, or trying to be better, whether it's better husbands, better friends, better boyfriends, whatever it is, right? Some women will use that against us, and we're like, okay, we can't trust you because you said X, Y, and Z, or whatever it is. And I think that's extremely unfortunate because men, we want to be accepted. We want to, believe it or not, one solid girl is better than 1,000 hoes, and and that's what it is, man. Like, we don't want five or six, seven, eight, 10 different girls, bro. That's a fucking headache, and we ain't trying to deal with all that shit because nobody has time for all that, bro. It's like, again, I can only speak for myself. It's like, I'm a one woman man, and it's like, I'm still looking for that individual. Um, I'll find her one day. I'm not, I'm not really gonna rush that. Because it is what it is, right? And I think everybody is so afraid to show who they are. And my thing is like, bro, if you a dope soul that like to write, that like to rap, that like to read, whatever, whatever it is, bro. I don't care if you like to draw. It's like, homie, like let me see that shit. I mean, it's like, or whatever it is, or if you want to pick up an instrument and play that, bro, or learn how to play that, or learn how to speak a different language, I'm like, bro, go ahead and do that. Like, stop limiting yourself. And but to go back to the behavior part that my homeboy was talking about, he's like, yeah, man, he's like, we should bring back being disrespectful. And like, the more and more I thought about it, it's like, what he meant by being disrespectful, he meant by challenging people, and but I think the wording that he uses is wrong. So um um it's like the same conversation that I've had with him before. We was talking about how certain girls back in the day they would get pumped and dumped, meaning it's like they would get used because they were fine and that's it. And it's true. And a lot of women, want to blame the guy for that or this and this and that. I'm like most of the time, like you know what the guy wants or whatever it is, right? So you go along with it and thinking that oh well I can change his mind this and this and that, and you really can't. And it's unfortunate because you end up becoming a different person because of that situation, or you end up marrying somebody who you shouldn't have been marrying, or that should have been a one night stand. That should have been a fling. And because people will tell you indirectly that they ain't shit. People will tell you what they're looking for, how much they're looking for, and what they want. I think that's imperative to pay attention, man, because it's like, um, especially when women have anxiety about men, and then you ask them why, and they don't really know, and it's always interesting to me when I run into women like that, and they say, yeah, I have men anxiety. I'm like what you mean, and they explain it, and I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But I'm like, ma, I'm not him. You know what I mean? So it's like you almost like got your work cut out for you because it's like, yeah, like you get it, but at the same time, it's like sometimes your blessing comes in different forms and packages, man. It's like one of my partners, one of my good friends, he said, bruh, he's like, sometimes, man, we can be all the right things, all the right package, my nigga, but we're at the wrong house, you know? Like, we Doritos and they want Pringles, bro. It don't matter, you know? And I think it's true. Because you can't force anything, man. You can't. You can't force anything. You can't make it seem more than what it is, because it's not. Our brains have a tendency to trick us into thinking that oh well that we want this to work, just because they make us happy, and it's like a lot of the times that's because you physically fine doesn't mean you're mentally healthy for me. I'll say that again. Just because you physically fine doesn't mean you're mentally healthy for me. And there's a lot of women out there who are physically fine, but mentally they will fuck up your life. They will fuck it up 10 different ways till Sunday. And they will walk away, not taking accountability for what they did, not taking accountability for what they said, not taking accountability for how they acted in the situation, but they're quick to point at the shit you did wrong. They're quick to point at everything that you didn't do right. And it's like, how can you sit there and say that? Or how can you sit there and move like that? Because it really doesn't mean anything. And because actions always speak louder than words. It's like, I've seen people like, oh, well, like telling me, oh, I wouldn't do X, Y, and Z, yada, yada, yada. And they turn around and do X, Y, and Z. And it's really fucking simple. And it's unfortunate that people are out there like that, because all they're doing is perpetuating a cycle of brokenness, and it's like, yo, it's like, I've never understood that. Why would you want to continue a cycle where it doesn't work, where all it does is hurt the other individual, uh, when this isn't what you wanted, and then when people do catch feelings, it's like they want to act a certain way about it because they're in their feelings, and I'm like, you can't, you can't sit there and act indifferent. You can't sit there and act like your feelings are hurt, because majority of the time is like, if you show us men your behavior of what you want, we're gonna give you what you want, but the problem is that we gonna keep it there, you know. So if you come to us promiscuous or whatever it is, we gonna treat you like that, you know. And very rarely do we switch up, you know, unless you ask us to switch up. We're not we're not gonna do that because we're giving you what you want. We're getting what we want. And the last time I checked, it was a it was an arrangement, you know. And if you cool with the arrangement in the beginning, don't complain about it in the end. Don't complain about how you're being treated. Don't complain about your behavior. Don't complain about none of that shit. Because, like I said before in the beginning, you know, being disrespectful. It's like when I say that, I mean it's like people should be challenged. You know, like they should be forced to think. You know, they should be forced to come up with rational thoughts and shit like that too. Because a lot of the times people would just be saying shit just to say shit, and it's like, what are you really talking about, bro? Like, what are you talking about? You know, it's like, this is what you wanted, this is what you got. Oh, now you feel a certain way about it? Too bad, you know? And I don't mean to be all going off in a tangent or whatever it is, but it's the truth, man. It's like a lot of people will sit there and never ever take accountability for what they did. But they're quick to play victim in a situation when it involved them. Um, it's like when people say, "Oh, well, like you know, me and my significant other, we never had any problems, this and this and that." But it's like he goes off and cheats on you multiple times. It's like obviously there were issues because it's like nobody who's happy in their relationship does what they do. You know, doesn't do what they do. You know, and it's idiotic to me because it's like you really gonna sit there and say that y'all never had any problems, or were you blind to the fact that you know there was issues in the relationship that you didn't want to deal with? You know, because a lot of women like that, they'll say that shit to avoid conflict, and then when the conflict does happen, they were like, "Oh, I don't know how to deal with it." Yeah, bitch, because you've been ignoring it the whole entire time. You know, or it's like when people want to sit there and be like, "Oh, X, Y, and Z, yada yada yada." I'm like, nah, it takes two people to make shit work. And a lot of times when people say that shit, like, "Oh, we never had any issues or whatnot," too, what they're talking about is that they never had the balls to talk about their issues with their other half. They never have, you know, they didn't want to sit there and have the uncomfortable conversations with their other half. That's what they're talking about. You know, they're not talking about quote unquote having no issues. They're talking about the fact that they don't like conflict and they don't like confrontation. So they just let that shit slide, and it doesn't work that way. You know, in order to have a healthy relationship, you gotta have uncomfortable conversations. You gotta have difficult conversations. Um, and it boils down to, and the last thing I'm gonna hit on to is don't be having kids with somebody just to have kids with them. You know, like talk about how you're gonna raise them. Talk about how you're gonna discipline them. Talk about how you're gonna handle conflict with them, with yourself. You know, talk about how you're gonna handle finances. Everything, man, because everything plays a role. You don't want to be that cat that gets or that woman that gets involved with a guy, or a guy who gets involved with a girl, and you have a kid, and it's like, okay, how the fuck did we do this now? You know what I mean? It's like talk about parenthood, talk about everything else, because that's a conversation that would help you avoid so much conflict down the road, man. Instead of you sitting there and they be like, oh, well, you know, not saying nothing, speak the fuck up, you know? And I think if more people did that, there'd be a lot less broken homes emotionally, you know, than they are, than they currently are. Because, again, I can only speak from me because I'm a guy, but men will model what we see, or kids will model what they see in general, right? And a lot of us men will model unhealthy behaviors because that's what we see. 'Cause a lot of us were raised by men who weren't emotionally available, or who didn't know how to deal with their emotions in a healthy way. So we do the same shit, and it fucks us up because we end up perpetuating the same cycle that should have been broken with us. And it takes a lot of work, a lot of self reflection, a lot of self inner work to realize that Okay, my behavior, all the shit that I modeled was wrong. Let me go fix this shit. Takes a lot of work, a lot of time, but it's worth it. All right, y'all. This is 20 minutes of your life that y'all won't get back. Hope y'all keeping it the 4 P's. Private play, positive pushing. See y'all next week Sunday. Love y'all. Ghost. And like I always say, know your worth because you're better than what you are. Peace.